Yes, I have a budget message.
You got a seat right there, sure. Seat quoted.
Just talk about it.
Good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the meeting to order. It is May 28th at 9:02. This is a meeting of the Douglas County Budget Committee to discuss and approve budget for the upcoming fiscal year starting on July 1st, 2020 and ending on June 30th of 21. The meetings will be conducted today and tomorrow, starting at 9 o'clock on both days. And the first order of business is to appoint a chair.
I would move that Jeff Johnson be appointed the chairperson for Douglas County Budget Committee for this upcoming budget year.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second to elect Jeff Johnson as the chair. Any questions, comments, concerns? I don't see Jeff running out of the building.
In the background check.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations, Mr. Chair. Before I turn it over to you, I would like to thank you, Dan, Katie, and Tom, again, for being willing to participate and help us. It's always good to have involved members of the community able to do this, but it's even better to have them willing to come back more than once. So we get better at it every year. Understanding of it gets a little better every year, and we're grateful for you being willing to help us out.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Well, this is happening.
Okay.
You know, an old timer that was really wise once told me, never do anything well that you don't want to do again. So you guys have done well, and you're willing to do it again, and we're grateful. All yours.
Thank you. And with that, Jessica, you go with the budget message?
Yep, I can deliver the budget message. Members of the Budget Committee and citizens of Douglas County. The proposed budget presented today is a balanced budget that totals $164,234,955 and includes 527.75 FTE full-time equivalent positions. This compares to the current adopted fiscal year budget of $164,782,067 with 524.12 FTE. All funds summary attached. The decrease of $547,112 in the county's total proposed budget over the fiscal year 2019-20 budget is detailed as follows. Departments that rely on general fund have been asked to create efficiencies, increase revenues, and decrease expenditures when possible. Increases in PERS costs for retirees, increased FTE and other personnel services cost increases, increased personal services by over $1 million. Capital outlay decreased mainly due to changes within parks projects and a juvenile project not moving forward. The increase in transfers out is for the sheriff enforcement and corrections operations, and there is an increase to operating contingency. Parks Department, Clerks Department, Building Department, the South Douglas Justice Court District, and the Reedsport Justice of the Peace once again presented budgets that do not require any general fund dollars. Overall, appropriations within the fund increased $1,747,689 and FTE increased 6.85. The Public Safety Fund decreased 1 FTE and personal services increased by $476,685, mostly due to bargaining increases. Materials and services decreased and capital outlay increased slightly. Overall, expenditures increased by $423,360. The Public Works Fund budget decreased personal services, materials and services, and capital outlay. The transfer out to the Public Safety Fund increased $508,283, and the transfer to General Fund to reimburse for central service expenses decreased $75,000. FTE decreased 3 FTE. Overall expenditures decreased $4,963,884. The Solid Waste Enterprise Fund was created in a prior fiscal year to account for disposal fees, other revenues and expenditures associated with solid waste operations, landfill sites, and closure post-closure costs. Personal services, materials and services, and capital outlay increased in the coming year. The transfer to general fund to reimburse for central service expenses increased $130,000, and the transfer to public safety for an enforcement officer was decreased $16,668. Overall expenditures increased $2,368,300. The Department of Environmental Quality approved an alternative financial assurance method in December 2018 after a warning letter was issued in June 2016 for noncompliance requiring corrective action. Reserves were required to be established each year in a closure-post-closure account based on the approved calculated method. A deposit of $503,510 is scheduled for the upcoming year. The Salmon Harbor Enterprise Fund increased personal services and decreased materials and services. Capital outlay decreased after completion of the RV Resort Expansion Project, and overall expenditures decreased $2,497,545. Materials and services increased within the County Schools Fund and the Title III Fund, $2,673,957, due to the extension of the Secure Rules School Act and the accounting of pass-through Title II funds. The net decrease in all other funds category above is primarily due to decreased public health pass-through grant funds and materials and services within the Health and Social Services Fund. Federal funding. On December 16, 2019, the President signed into law the Further Consolidated Appropriations Act 2020, PL 116-44, which extended the Secure Rules Schools and Community Self-Determination Act of 2000, known as SRS, with 2 years funding, each at reduced levels, 95% of the preceding year. The extension reauthorized the Bureau of Land Management, ONC, and the Department of Interior, Forest Service, to make payments for federal fiscal year 2019 and 2020, which are for Douglas County fiscal years ending June 30, 2020 and June 30, 2021. The proposed budget includes estimated SRS of $6,723,051 in the general fund and $4,144,120 in the public works fund, the two major operating funds that receive those dollars. The history of the most recent SRS payment and the upcoming estimate is below. Douglas County did not anticipate an SRS reauthorization in the current fiscal year and therefore only budgeted for timber receipts. Due to the reauthorization, the county general fund received $2.6 million more in SRS than budgeted timber receipts and $3.8 million more in the public works fund than budgeted timber receipts. Douglas County prevailed in 2 recent land management lawsuits, one relating to the expansion of the Cascade-Siskiyou National Monument and another relating to the federal management plan applicable to ONC lands. The 1937 ONC Act says ONC lands classified as timberland shall be managed for the production of timber under the principle of sustained yield, which means harvest levels can never exceed the annual growth of the forest. In November 2019, a judge ruled that the 2016 Resource Management Plan violated the 1937 ONC Act, specifically violating minimum sustained yield requirements for timber harvest. A time frame for implementing new management strategies consistent with the 1937 ONC Act has not yet been determined. The County Board of Commissioners continues to work with Congress on a permanent management plan for federal timberlands that complies with the 1937 Act, since the current reauthorization or timber receipts are not sufficient to fund essential county services at their current levels. In 1989, the peak of annual timber harvest for timber receipts, the county received in excess of $50 million combined from the Bureau of Land Management and the Forest Service from active timber harvesting. Property taxes. The county will again certify its permanent tax rate in the amount of 1.1124 per $1,000 of assessed valuation. This tax rate is fixed by law and is the 4th lowest in the state. The tax amount The total amount of property tax the county expects to collect is $10.6 million, an increase of $500,000 from the current year budget. Property taxes collected in the coming year will be deposited into the general fund, and a $9.5 million transfer from general fund is budgeted to the sheriff's department to support operations. General fund balance. On July 1, 2019, the county general fund had a beginning fund balance of $56.3 million. For the FY 2020-2021, estimated beginning fund balance is $50 million. The budgeted use of fund balance, including SRS, is approximately $7.8 million, a decrease of $580,000 from the current year. This will leave a remaining general fund balance of approximately $42.2 million at June 30, 2021. The current rate of use of the general fund reserves is not sustainable. In the near future, if the federal funding issues are not resolved, the county will need to find alternative ways to fund services and or reduce or eliminate many services. This will ensure sufficient levels of reserves are sustained in order to fund ongoing operations and mitigate risks such as revenue shortfalls and unanticipated expenditures. Public Works. On July 1, 2019, the Public Works Fund had a beginning fund balance of $46.8 million. The estimated ending fund balance June 30 of 2021 is $25.8 million. This means the county expects to use approximately $21 million during the current and next budget year. With one exception, state law requires the Public Works Fund be used only for roads and bridges. In 2007, a provision was added to Oregon law that allows the county to pay for sheriff's patrols and associated costs out of the Public Works Fund. Fund balance changes. The chart below breaks down projected beginning and ending fund balances as well as the change amount by fund. PERS and other personnel. PERS rates shown below include the 6% employee pickup. These rates will be effective until June 30, 2021, and reflect an average increase of 6.7% from the previous biennium rates. July 1, 2020 advisory rates issued earlier in the year reflect another substantial rate increase. An anticipated average overall increase of 8.81. Negotiated cost of living increases and other increases are budgeted within the departments impacted by union bargaining contracts. Douglas County has incurred significant costs and unanticipated revenue shortfalls due to the COVID-19 public health emergency. The ongoing impacts and timelines are uncertain. Departments in management and finance will monitor budgets closely, specifically areas that are driven by economic factors and those departments that work with the state of Oregon or receive state shared revenues. The proposed budget includes a general information section, a summary section, a separate detail section for general fund, public safety fund, the health and social services fund, the public works fund, and an other funds section, which contains detailed information on all other county funds. Producing a budget is a collaborative effort. I would like to thank the budget committee, county departments, and my staff for their tireless efforts. And I would also like to thank the commissioners for working through this very difficult time and still producing the budget, and the budget committee members for being flexible and changing dates around. I appreciate that. And for my staff for, and all the departments for preparing a budget in these times. It was a challenge to get here, and I'm very glad that we're here today. So, thank you guys.
Thank you, Jessica. Any questions or comments on the budget? Okay, with that, we'll invite the sheriff up. Sheriff Hamlin.
Going to be a balancing act here for a couple minutes.
And just
I'm
so
afraid.
we're on tab 8, committee members, page, or tab 25, page 108.
Well, before I get started with my budget, I'd like to announce that I've brought the the Douglas County Sheriff's Office annual report to you all, but to stay within the requirements and guidelines of COVID precautions, I've placed them out in the Commissioner's office, so I don't have to handle them and pass them out to everybody. That said, I'm proud to announce the submission of this report. It's our 6th year of providing an annual report. It is a product that I'm both honored and proud to produce. I'm very proud of the men and the women of the Sheriff's Office, and I'm proud to report to you the accomplishments that we've achieved over the past 12 months. This 2019 annual report reflects the hard work and the dedication of the men and the women of the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. The success of our mission would not be possible without the support of our county commissioners, so thank you, as well as this committee, and an endless list of others throughout the county. The report is an instrument that demonstrates to our citizens each year our dedication and our commitment to our mission of providing high-quality law enforcement services in an ethical and fiscally responsible manner. It's been an absolute pleasure to serve all of you this past year, and I commit to you that we will continue to work in our quest to provide the best services possible to each of you in the coming years ahead. Thank you for your trust and support. Together, we can keep Douglas County a safe place to live, work, and raise our children. So again, these are placed in the Commissioner's office. Good morning, Commissioners and members of the Budget Committee. The budget that you have before you reflects the budgetary directions provided by the Board of Commissioners. This budget is a status quo budget that, if passed or approved, would keep our public safety services functional at the current level. Over the past several years, while county departments have shrunk and have been consolidated, the Sheriff's Office included, the Board of Commissioners has focused on making public safety a priority here in Douglas County. We understand now more than ever, Douglas County is facing major financial shortfalls which will directly affect the Sheriff's Office and the citizens of Douglas County. But thanks to the coordination and the support of the Board of Commissioners and this Budget Hearings Committee, I remain hopeful that through collaborative, cooperative efforts, we can find a solution that allows us to continue providing adequate Sheriff's Office services to the community. Since receiving our initial budget direction from Management and Finance in February, we have worked very hard with the Commissioners through the budgetary process, all while being challenged by a pesky COVID-19 pandemic. My command staff strives to be financially responsible. We are constantly monitoring our budget, recommending appropriate increases in contracts to more accurately reflect the actual costs of providing services such as general patrol services, jail services, and dispatch services, to name a few. And we actively look for other funding and grant opportunities to help offset costs. The proposed budget before you, again, is a status quo budget, one that provides us, or would provide us, the ability to maintain patrol and jail services at a tolerable level. It reflects a $308,000 increase from the current fiscal year 1920 budget as a whole. There are a few changes you will see in the budget that are due to reduced revenues, increased personnel service costs, the purchase of computers and necessary software updates, unfunded training mandates, and increased fleet costs to more accurately cover patrol vehicle replacement costs. With that said, I will move into the budget, and we are on, which tab did you say?
25. Okay.
So I'll go through the more significant items here in the budget. The general fund, as you will see, the amount went from 8.7 million to a proposed 9.5 million. a change of $811,000. The Public Works transfer is a $508,000 increase. That is the money from the road fund. Intergovernmental revenues, you will see a 12% decrease. That is as a result of the reduction of funding from RSAT, the program that is paid for through the state to provide residential drug treatment in the jail. There's also a reduction in the emergency management state funds position, which that reminds me, I want to back up real quickly to the overall command structure, organizational structure of the sheriff's office. And there is one significant change. I'm sure Commissioner Freeman can talk more about this, but the plan is to remove Wayne Stinson, the emergency manager, out from under the sheriff's office umbrella, including his budget, and make him his own budget.
Plan is to move the budget out, not the person.
I'm sorry, yeah, I misspoke. The actual budget is removed from the sheriff's office and will be a separate budget. Wayne will still report and work down in my office. So as a result of that, that move of that budget, there's some change in intergovernmental revenues as well. In the DOC corrections contract, you will notice there's a 48% change in the amount of $935,000. That is the big news, the big painful pill for us to swallow, if you will. That is as a result of the Department of Corrections reducing their budget to us, which was the money that paid for jail space in the bed space in the jail that the Department of Corrections, the adult parole and probation used to ensure that they had bed space available for violators that they needed to house in the jail. That reduction obviously is a significant reduction that if we have to absorb that amount of money, it's going to result in a tremendous change in the size of the population of the jail, and we'll have to cut a number of positions. And so my hopes are is that we can cover that and not have to reduce our jail size and therefore release criminals.
About that for just a minute.
Sure, Commissioner
I don't mean
Freeman.
to stop you in the middle of your presentation. This is a really important part of the entire budget today. So what the sheriff is getting at is that the parole and probation contract was cut in half, almost $1 million. In order to, we had to model what that would look like in a jail. Literally, they'd have to close a floor, which was a little over 80 beds, 80 jail spots that would go away. So what we're proposing in this budget is to take some of the ONC secure rural school funding that we got. Was, we went and did that work to get secure rural schools reauthorized, and we're proposing to take $811,000 of that and backfill that cut from parole and probation as part of this budget to keep the jail bed numbers where they were. So that's really what's going on in the proposed budget. And want the budget committee to understand that is a budget committee policy decision that we're making in this presentation from the sheriff's office.
And with 80 less beds, what percentage of that is the total population? How many beds in the jail?
It's 284 bed facility.
But the reality is you run about 200.
Yeah, reality is because of the layout of the facility, back when it was made, there were the state and federal requirements to segregate and separate certain violators wasn't in place, and since that time they've come up with new classifications and needs to keep certain violators separate from others. So when we get to about 230, 230 to 240, we are at max capacity.
So taking 80 away from that is substantial. Literally, when they did the layout, they would close an entire floor. You know, so even though it's a 30-bed financial cut, the way it would work for staffing, you'd have to eliminate over 80 beds.
And you have no problem keeping the jail full?
Typically, no. Now, with this, with COVID, just recently, we've had some issues. Number one, we reduced our population on purpose so that we could maintain some distancing and keep areas available for the possibility of having an inmate brought in that was tested positive. We wanted to be able to quarantine, and then, there's such a volume of people generally coming and going out of the facility. We wanted to be able to quarantine new people that are brought in for a period of 10, 14 days to make sure they don't get sick. And then once we are confident that they aren't sick, then we could move them into general population. But for precautionary reasons, we did lower the overall population of the facility. And now, since the state officers through parole and probation aren't yet back to work fully, they aren't bringing violators into the facility like they normally do. And so our population is slowly creeping back up. We're hopeful that, we'll get it back, to a manageable, reasonable level, soon. But
This budget's for next, so we're
yeah,
certainly anticipating needing the space.
right.
Okay.
So the revenue from the Department of Corrections is obviously a big issue for our budget this year. The Corrections Division, all other revenues, you'll notice 11% decrease. This is as a result of our contract city beds. The cities, when they arrest somebody and bring them in to the facility, as long as it's not a felony charge, if it's a misdemeanor charge, then that cost is on the city that brings that inmate in, and we've seen those numbers down slightly, largely in the last few months because of COVID-19. But we again expect those numbers to be back on the rise as we get through this pandemic. So down in requirements, the Enforcement Division, you see a 2% increase. There in the amount of $305,000, and again, that's an increase in personnel costs, pay raises, training costs, and recently, actually, as of January of 2019, we were tasked with an unfunded mandate in training, which involves ethics training, which I don't have a problem with at all. I believe, ethics training is always very important in this profession, but it's an unfunded mandate. We're required to receive so many hours a year of ethics training, which again came with no funding. So from now on, we're going to have to require all of our employees to go through so many hours of ethics training a year. And that's essentially the changes, significant changes to our enforcement budget.
Got one question. How long will we be able to continue to take road funds? Isn't that something about 5 or 6 or 7 years ago that we started, and is that going to end someday, or?
So there's a group of counties in Oregon that were allowed in the 2007 bill to include the cost of patrolling roads as a allowable expense out of road funds that were either timber receipts or secure rural schools. They can't be from gas tax or registration. So it's a specific portion of the road fund that can be used. It was renewed, a few years later when I was in the legislature, and it included some additional counties, but did not put a time on the end of it as far as I remember, so I don't believe it needs to be renewed. The sort of the limiting factor is how much of those dollars we receive. So, some of the dollars we have in reserve are those Secure School or, historical timber receipt dollars. Once that portion of the fund is depleted, the limitation of what we can use is what any given year of either timber receipts, Forest Service timber receipts, or Forest Service Secure School fund is the only, so that'll be our limitation, is the money, not the time. And we're spending more in these budgets than we're receiving in Secure Schools. So we're depleting the reserve
In that
to some,
section.
Katie?
did I miss any of that?
No, that's great.
Mine is
Very
on the
good.
same topic as Public Works. We've got a lot of bridges that are failing. You got bridges, don't you have bridges in this county? School buses can't even go across?
Yes.
Fire trucks can't go across?
So if we get to Public Works, you'll see there's a significant direction to increase bridge repair and use some of those reserve dollars. And I think the budget direction from the board was that fixing a bridge now costs less than fixing it in 10 years, and the amount of interest we're making on that money is far less than the amount of, increased cost, inflation over time. So I think the desire is to go ahead and catch up on some of those bridges. The commissioners can comment on that, but I think that's the direction we took.
And so last year in this meeting, we discussed a levy to try to stop taking public work funds. What happened with that?
I wasn't part of that discussion.
Nothing. Yeah, I'd like to see a levy to stop taking public works. I think our bridges and our roads are a safety factor as well, and we're pulling money from